Hey everyone, Mick here. In today's video, we're going to be talking about something that a lot of people struggle with, which is dieting. And I'm here to tell you that diets don't work. And this is what I'm doing instead. Over the years, I have tried all types of diets, and I would always lose weight in the short term, but in the long term, the problem was I would end up gaining it back. And this constant gaining the weight, losing the weight just repeated itself over and over again. So eventually I realized diets don't work. And the reason they don't work is because they're not sustainable. To lose weight, we need to be in a calorie deficit, which means that we're taking in less calories than we're actually burning. Now, most diets are pretty good at restricting our calories and putting us in a deficit. So we generally will end up losing weight in the short term. But to stay on these diets, they forced me to make changes that were just way too different from the way I was eating at the time. Things like cutting out too many foods, or restricting my calories really low, or just creating rules that really didn't work for my life. With diet plans, it was so difficult to go from what I was currently eating to something completely different. There was no way that I could overhaul my eating habits overnight and actually succeed. So I would either have problems sticking with the diet, or if I did stay on the diet long enough and actually lose some weight, as soon as I would come off of it and go back to my old eating habits, I would just gain the weight back. Eventually, I realized two things. The first was that the more extreme or restrictive the diet was, the harder it was to stick to. And if I can't continue to eat that way long term as a regular part of my life, then the results were only temporary because they only would last while I was on the diet. Second, to lose weight, I knew that I needed to lower my calories and be in a calorie deficit over time. So over the past couple of years, these are the things that I started to do. I want to mention that there were times where I made mistakes, I failed, I was on track, got off track, got back on track. So keep in mind that the things that I'm mentioning were things that I worked on over time, and it was a process with a lot of ups and downs. So the first thing I did was I stopped dieting. I stopped any diet plan that was unrealistic or extreme or just unsustainable for the long term. I avoided anything that was cutting out major food groups or giving me these regimented rules or just generally made me feel deprived. Instead, I focused on creating a lifestyle of eating, something that I could stick to long term. I generally knew what I should and shouldn't be eating. The question was, how do I shift from where I was then to where I wanted to get to? So I just decided to start with where I was at, with my current eating habits, and then try to figure out ways that I can make improvements and modifications over time. I started looking at my usual meals, and I picked one or two small changes that I could work on over time. Things that were small enough that I could stick to for the long term. For example, little things like starting to cut back on the amount of sugar that I was putting in my coffee, or starting to shift myself to lower fat dairy products, slowly cutting back on snacks and desserts, actually trying different leaner protein options instead of just eating the burgers and the steaks that I used to always eat, and even starting to look for very simple, healthier recipes and cooking a little bit more at home. Not all of these at once, just picking one or two very simple things to start with and then working with them over time. And then once they became a habit and I was comfortable with the change, then selecting something else to work on. By making these changes over time and building on them, I started to feel like I could eat healthier most of the time without really feeling like I was on a diet. And this became something that I was able to work with long term, and it was realistic, simple to follow, and it was flexible. And now the second thing that I needed to do was to control my calories. And when it comes to weight loss, calories are the most important thing. If you are not in a calorie deficit on a regular basis, you will not lose weight. So if I want to lose weight, I need to create and stay in a calorie deficit most of the time. So on average, I'm trying to be about 500 calories below my maintenance level. That gives me a weight loss of about a pound a week. To start, I set a calorie range that I shoot for every day. For example, for me, I generally know that I will lose weight based on my history at around 2,200 calories. So I set my calorie range plus or minus 150 calories to that. So my range per day will be 2,050 calories up to 2,350 calories. And that's what I'm shooting to be at every day. And if you don't know what number to start at, you can use an online weight loss calculator to help you figure that out. You would enter things like your age, your gender, your activity level, your weight, your goal weight, and it will help you figure out a number to start with. Or you could just multiply your goal weight by 12 and start with that. If over a couple of weeks you feel that you're not really losing weight, just decrease those numbers. And once you have that starting number, just start tracking. I use MyFitnessPal, the free version, but there are other ones out there that you could use like Weight Watchers, Lose It. There's some of them I haven't really used, but just try them out and experiment to see which one you like. The important thing is that you get a number, set a range, and start tracking. And don't restrict your calories too much. In the past, I used to try to lose weight faster, and I would lower my calories really low in an effort to just lose weight as quickly as possible. And it never really worked out. I would just end up getting derailed or not being able to stick to it. Over time, I found that I didn't have to restrict my calories that much to lose weight. A smaller calorie deficit meant that I was losing weight a little slower, but that's not a bad thing. When I was losing weight slowly, I found that there was a better chance that I was going to stay on track, and I was also maintaining more muscle tissue. As you work toward your goals, it's important to find balance, to have patience, and lose weight slowly over time. I realized that I gained weight slowly over time, so I find it best to kind of lose it the same way. I realized there really are no shortcuts. In the past, I used to look at food as either good or bad, and there were so many foods that I was not allowed to eat. I used to try to be perfect on my diet, so that meant that I was only allowed to eat the good foods. But the problem was when I wanted one of the bad foods, I would use my willpower to avoid it. So when my willpower eventually gave out and I ate the bad food, I would feel bad and horrible and guilty that I ate it. And then I would end up binging to make myself feel better. And then I would tell myself, oh, I'll just start again tomorrow. Unfortunately, there were a lot of tomorrows. But now I don't think about food as good or bad. Instead, I think of it as a choice between foods that might be considered more of a healthier option and then other foods that may be considered less healthy, yet they're still foods that I enjoy and that I want to eat every once in a while. And when it comes to eating bad foods or good foods, study after study has shown that the most important thing are the calories that we're taking in for weight loss, not so much the types of food that we're eating. So with that in mind, I focus more on eating the foods that are considered the more healthier options because they're more nutritious and they fuel my body better. But I also know that it's okay every once in a while to eat those foods that are considered a little bit less healthy because you enjoy them and you really want it. Even if I'm eating those foods, I'm still trying to keep them as close to my calorie ranges as possible because remember, the main thing is the number of calories that you're taking in. Now when I indulge, I'm choosing to allow myself to indulge. But how I'm eating and how much I'm eating when I indulge is different than the way it was before. I try to eat in a more relaxed and controlled way now where I'm taking my time, I'm enjoying it, and I'm not feeling guilty about it. This is so different than the old way I used to indulge where it was based in very heavy emotional eating and I was eating the food so fast that I was barely even tasting it. Key here is to find balance and to allow yourself to enjoy these foods every once in a while. You just need to be in a calorie deficit over time. So if you're indulging every once in a while, it's not going to derail your progress long term. So how does exercise factor into weight loss? Well, the main thing is to remember that to lose weight, you need to be in a calorie deficit. So regardless of how much you're exercising, if you don't have a calorie deficit, you're not going to lose weight. So the most important thing is to control your calories. But exercise can help you burn additional calories, which helps you get to that calorie deficit, so you don't have to cut back on more food. Plus, it helps you feel better, it helps keep you stronger, and it reduces stress, so it should be a part of your regimen in some way. But I want you to be aware that the amount of calories that you're burning through exercise can very easily be put back with just eating a small amount of additional food. For more information on this, check out my video on how exercise will not beat diet. I'll put a link in the description below. So the key takeaway here is you don't need a diet. Instead, focus on creating a lifestyle of eating that you can stick to long term. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like what I had to say, click the like button, subscribe, remember to stay active, and I'll see you in the next video.